Hi, Melody. I'm Ariana. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I just finished the film. It was very emotional. I was like, this was too much, but in a good way. You want a movie to elicit emotions. Where did the idea come from?
Yeah. Well, it came from it came from me trying to trigger myself. I was writing stuff that it just felt I felt too created and false, and I had this writing experiment, and I was like, just sit down and write what scares the ever loving shit out of you, and see what happens. And it ended up turning into me exploring just not growing up without a dad and how much it did shape my life. And or I should say growing up without my biological dad. I did have a stepdad, but I do have a stepdad. But yeah, I just I realized that I had this obsession with a missing person, and so much of myself was defined by it. So I just kept digging.
Yes. With Bird, why is now such an urgent moment for her to meet her father?
Yeah, I mean Bird has made a mess of everything in her life. She is officially stunted, I'd say, and unable to come to peace with who she is. And she has she has destroyed a relationship with a man who's very willing to accept her for who she is. And at the launch of the film, it's either show up and try to figure this out or be happy and contented with just destroying relationships for the rest of your life.
Yes. She does like she's a liar to say the least. And in the beginning, you think she's lying about inconsequential things, and then as the film goes on, you realize she just lies about everything. Why did you decide to make her seem like I won't say an unreliable narrator, but someone who isn't honest? Why did you decide to go that route?
God, that is a great question. Because I think it's partly because I'm a really bad liar. It's one thing about the character that I don't relate to personally. And I think I think I sort of admire people who are able to just like run at an idea
Mhm.
and make it happen. And she's very much that character for me. She's just like, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm just gonna take the chaos and I'm gonna make it work for me. And I find those kinds of characters really fascinating. I like stories with characters like that. I also really like I like watching things where the lead character you struggle with how much you agree with them,
Mhm.
and you struggle with how much there's this film called Everyone Else by Maren Ada, who did Tony Erdmann, that German film. She made this film about this couple, and like every 5 minutes you're changing who you like in the couple. You're like, oh, now she's right, now he's right, and I just really like that kind of writing also. So I wanted to I wanted to activate the audience with a character who's just um making you wonder whether or not anything coming out of their mouth is true.
Yes. And then when she's confronted about a lie, she's just like, well, let it go. What are you going to do about it? And it's just like, oh, there's going to be no growth here.
Yeah.
But she also gets it from her mom, um, who Carlotta, like, sometimes you're just like, oh, like the moment when she's just like, oh, let me help you calm down. And she kind of gives her like this meditative moment. But then she'll be like, well, you, don't cry. Like, I have this boundary. Like, your emotions have nothing to do with me. But then she blames her emotions on everyone else.
Everyone else. Yeah.
Um, why is she such a hypocrite?
Well, so for Bird to me is like quite self-aware of what she's doing. If Carlotta is to me a bit, and maybe this is the wrong terminology, but she's a bit more pathological. She's had to create a version of her world where she isn't to blame for anything.
Mhm,
And, while Christine and I were researching like why people end up doing this. We were like pointing at narcissist personality disorder
mhm,
because I guess that's just a very common thing. Specifically with that personality disorder where you struggle with um being blamed. You struggle with it being your fault. And so for Carlotta, like she's not aware that she's a hypocrite. So it's hard for her to change that behavior because for her she is just living her truth moment by moment.
yes. Why also can't Carlotta stay in one place? Like she's still like in her hometown, but she also always has to travel at like the drop of a dime.
Well, if things are hard for her, it has to be someone else's fault. It has to be something else's fault. Context, oh, rent's too high. I can't get a job that pays that rent, or I can't live with a man who leaves trash everywhere. Like something is always to blame. So if it's not her, then she's got to change the thing that it is. So she has to stay in movement. Otherwise, she has to start looking inward.
Yes. Why does Dell put up with it? Why is he there?
Funny. Um, well, I mean, to me, a lot of his ethos is described when he says like less honesty is better for my health. I mean, he's been through it. He has both of them have such big stories outside of what you see on screen that took to make them. And for Dale, it's very much like he's had his hard work years. He's already done his own child rearing. He just wants to be with someone who's a good time. And Carlotta is a good time. She is down to go to the estate sale. She's down to go on a vacation. She is not settled at all. And she wants to have fun and so does he. And he's down to put up with the chaos in the meantime.
Yeah. What was it like to craft Dell and Bird's relationship? Because he's like, oh, open up to me. But then he's kind of a bit of like a traitor to her in a way. What was that like to shape that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think Dale's always coming from a place of best intentions. He always feels that he's doing the best that he can do for anyone in the moment. And I know when he says you got to get out of here tonight, I mean, she's woken him up in the middle of the night. I'd say that's not Dale at his finest moment. Maybe a slightly more awake version of that character would have said, let me like calm this all down if I can, and everyone can stay here tonight. We're good. But otherwise, crafting that relationship, he really is just trying to be a good, decent shoulder for her to lean on. He sees the difficulty that she and Carlotta have communicating, and he wants to just be a friend if he can be.
Yeah.
Also, the stakes are different for him. He hasn't known Bird his whole life, so he can touch on the sore subjects easier than Carlotta would be able to.
Yes. Bird, when she kind of mentioned putting mud in the mailbox, which is a thing in the movie, she says that Carlotta gets honest when she gets wild up. And Dell says, no, your mom gets honest when she has no other option. For you, who wrote the character, when do you think she gets honest, if ever? And when do you think Bird gets honest, if ever?
I think the moment of honesty for them is the minute after the movie ends. I think the journey very much for me is getting them to a place where they can be. And I don't feel that I showed either of them crossing over to the other side and what that looks like.
Bird and her mom, mostly her mom, have it feels as if she has a real issue with Bird being black. And she deals with it in different ways. First, she says that Bird came from the earth. That's why her skin is brown, which was disgusting. And like, why would you ever say that? And then it was a really hard scene to watch when they have that fight, and she makes it. She first says like, "Oh, like I gave birth to you, like that was my job, and I shouldn't be at fault with everything that happens at the end." And then it's just like, "Oh, I had to deal with people looking at me because I had a black child, and then I had to deal with you being bullied and those emotions, and then your hair." And it was just like, well, fuck you. Like, what was it like for you as a woman of color writing that scene, having that acted out, and why was that a part of the film and the narrative?
mean, when I grew up and where I grew up, being biracial was like not a thing. And I think now for a lot of people in a lot of places in the States, like having biracial families, having language that supports, having the internet, like being inquisitive as to how it could influence a kid or affect a kid to grow up in a biracial household, it's so much more accessible now for an interested parent. And I think very much for, at least for where I was and how I was raised in the 90s, like the messaging that was everywhere was like be colorblind. And it made so much sense at the time when I was a kid. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And as I got older, I was like, this is disgusting. This is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm being told to be invisible. And on the other side, I think there's definitely like um people feeling like they did their best, like they're doing their best here. And obviously it's hard as a white person to be raising a black child on their own. Like how could that not be difficult for me as well, being that parent? And yeah, I think that's just like a story people have told themselves and in that time and in that place especially, and still do. And I wrote it because the it's so specific, but I think the effects of a parent-child relationship where the child feels like a burden because they are a different race and because their parent doesn't know how to reconcile that or talk to them about that, or the solution is to try to take it take that away from them instead of buttressing it and exploring it with them, and giving them freedom to express however they'd like to. Um, that is, yeah, I think that's just it really is hard and damaging. And you know, just again, I was triggering myself by writing this. So
Yes. I was like, this just feels cruel to Melody herself. I'm like, why would you do this? But it
Well,
is important.
I want people that have felt this to not feel alone. Like that's why,
Yeah.
like that's the purpose of filmmaking to me, is to like hold hands with other people and say like, okay, we're all like a little weird or a little fucked up, or we all have the same things that are beautiful and move us. And and I just there are a lot of like biracial kids out there who I think have lived this, and I want them to feel seen. And that's yeah.
Yes, it was very beautiful. And I appreciate you doing that for people in the past and now. Cause I was just like, this is just wow. Like it was just like I've never seen that type of portrayal and like brutal honesty. Cause that is a lot of people's experience. Yes. But how did you know that Alisha and Christine were the perfect Bird and Carlotta?
It was really instinct. It was meeting them, talking. I mean, it was almost instantaneous with Alicia, and I understood more and more why as we continued to get to know each other, like just um beyond like actually working on the movie together. We just had so many conversations about our upbringing and just, I mean, she and I specifically just grew up without dad. She's has a totally different experience with her family otherwise. But yeah, it was really just like a quick. fast, like this person just gets it and we get each other and we know how to talk to each other. And I had such belief in them, both as performers from the get-go. So to like link arms and do it together made just so much sense. I
Yeah.
was quite blessed in that way.
Yeah. The 16th birthday dress comes a lot in the movie when they discuss it, and she wears it a lot. She wears a lot in her dreams. Why was that so significant?
It is very much for me a symbol of the burden that um Bird feels she is. Her mother cannot extend to her something that's special that she owns. She can't say, this thing is special to me and now it's yours. She says, it's special to me, don't touch it.
Hmm.
And for Bird, it's almost like this, it's like the holy grail of her mother, actually. Um, allowing her to feel that she's not a burden, that things didn't go poorly. Like that if her mother would just give her the dress, I think like they would solve so much about their relationship. But she can't. She can't. So yeah, it's the thing Bird keeps trying to take.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Congrats on this project, and I can't wait to talk to you about future projects.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.